Set the hook. Jeepers.
You know what? I'm thinking that's bottom.
Jeepers. Set the hook. Again. Set it again. It's a good fish. Nice bass. Look at gorgeous bass. The gorgeous bronze
Nice
colors.
fish.
Beautiful fish. So beautiful. Look at how clear this water is.
Let's go fishing. People, when you're in the mood, let's go fishing. Well, it's just me and you. Head on down to the fishing hole. Grab your hat, get your pole. Let's go fishing. When you're in the mood.
Canadian Sport Fishing is brought to you by Rapala, premium fishing gear crafted from experience. Yamaha Outboards, reliability starts here. Sail, the outdoors superstore. Fisher Girl, catch the passion.
Now, you've done quite a bit of smallmouth bass fishing up north and in Quebec, right?
Yes.
So this is the first time moving water like this?
First time on the Niagara River.
Now, by the way, this is Richard Yantha, and Richard works with Johnson Outdoors, so with sonars and electric trolling motors, and he's a perfect guy to have with me. Okay, you ready? Good, net job. Yeah, for a starter, he's about 17 inches, hooked right in the roof of the mouth. Look at that, small head, big body. What do you think he weighs?
I'd say 2 pounds.
You're a very conservative fisherman. I'll guess that he is 16 and a half inches, 3 1/4 pounds.
No way.
You think he's 16 inches? How long do you think he is?
Oh, he's probably 16 inches. He's no way. Not 3 pounds though.
Here.
Yeah, maybe 2.5.
Okay, you know what? We're gonna put him back in the net, and then we're gonna slide him in. And he's got lots of energy, so he's gonna take off real quick. Oh, they're so beautiful. Look at how clear this water is. Good release.
You know, you were talking about keeping the boat, keeping our lines vertical and stuff like that.
Very
That's why
important.
we have the Charova with the iPilot. You can actually run it with the foot pedal or with the remote. So even if you're at the front of the boat, I'm at the back of the boat, we can still operate the trolling motor at the same time.
What I like about it is that in the current, if I have it on autopilot, I can actually keep it going in the same direction.
Yeah.
Right? That's really advantageous.
Or if you're in a current and you want to actually hold on one spot, there's one button on the pilot here, which is spot lock,
Yep.
and that'll actually hold you in one spot. It's like an electronic anchor
I haven't used that, even in the current?
in the current, so it'll hold you. And if
That's
your boat
amazing.
moves, I think it's 10 feet, it'll actually kick back on and move you right back into place. It's very cool.
Now, you know, as we've spoken, we've probably gone down about 300
We've
yards.
actually gone far away.
Because you can see how far the bridge is.
Yeah.
But we're still in good water. So
Yeah.
this is where you need electronics. You could come out here and just drift with the boat, but if you don't have an electric, it's really hard to control your line. And one of the problems here in the upper Niagara is that it goes from 25 feet up to 12, back down to 16, 18, and a lot of those humps have zebra mussels on them, and they'll catch your tubes or whatever you're bouncing along the bottom. When it comes to fishing tube jigs, you need to have tubes, which are these plastic grubs right here. They're very simple. All it is an actual tube of plastic that's hollow inside, and then one end of it has actually been cut, so it has like a squid-like tail. So there's not much to it. And you can see that these are 4-inch ones, and they're like a pumpkin seed color, which is pretty standard when it comes to tube colors. Some people will have a preference depending where they're fishing, whether they're fishing Lake Erie, Lake Ontario, or inland lakes. You can use anywhere from pearl and white colored tubes right down to black tubes and everything in between. Now, the one thing that's very important is to use a tube jig head when you're actually using a tube. And I'm holding two up here. The ones in my left hand are 1/4 ounce right here. the one in my right, are 3/8. And here in the Niagara River, especially the upper river, the depths can really vary, and the current, and also when you have wind blowing against the current. So I tend to use the 3/8 ounce jig heads, but sometimes the quarters will work. Now I just want to show you the angle of the hook on this jig head. If you can see, most hooks that are designed to be used in a tube jig have a 90-degree. The eye comes straight up from the jig head. So this one actually has a 60-degree eye, so it's facing a little bit forward. And I'll explain to you when I put the tube jig why that's so important. I'm going to wet it. Nice and salty. Reminds me of salted fries. I'm going to put it in there. You try not to break it. You push it right near the top, and when you get it near the front, you just push it through so that you see the eye like that. The key is to get it to lay straight down. Okay, so I'll put it in my hand. You can see how nice and straight that is. That way when it's going through the water, it'll drop straight down and won't roll when it's dropping through the water. Now the reason that hook is angled a little bit 60 degrees is so that when you hit a rock or something along the bottom, instead of the jig coming straight up like this, the head comes up first because that eye is on an angle, 60-degree angle. So I find that these don't get caught up as much as the ones that have the eye that come off at 90 degrees. So you know, if you fish anywhere for smallmouth bass, it doesn't matter if it's a southern lake or a clear lake like a lake trout lake, if you find some structure anywhere from as shallow as 7-8 feet or as deep as 30-40 feet, and you drop one of these down, you don't cast and retrieve them, you just drag them along the bottom. And they look, in the Great Lakes, they look like a goby going along the bottom. And in northern lakes where there are no gobies, it probably looks like a crayfish going along the bottom. And smallmouths love these so much that they not only grab them, but they'll hold on to them and try to swallow them.
X-Mark, you find fish catch of the day.
James, it's Tony from Canadian Sport Fishing calling. How you doing?
Pretty good, yourself?
I'm fantastic. And I'm looking at your picture, the big muskie. My goodness, buddy. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. I need you to think back to that day. What technique you used and what you did with the fish, how that all worked out for you. Jam it all in there and get her going, okay?
All right, well, we were out in Georgian Bay, and we had 2-fish day, and it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And within about 10 minutes, we just fishing a deep ledge, and yeah, that fish come up and just crushed it about 10 feet from the boat. Pretty good battle, a couple of jumps and flips, and got her in the net. And took a couple of pictures and let her go on her way.
Now, how did you know that wasn't bottom, being the pro that you are?
Being the pro that I am. Just slowly took it. Oh, nice.
Nice one. Okay, you hold on, keep them in the water. I'll get the net. You hooked them perfectly. I can see that jig right in the side of the mouth, so it wasn't hooked too deep. A little bit wider. Notice how we're taking time here. Perfect. I'm not going to ask you how big he is because you'll probably downsize him. He's about
bigger than yours.
I was going to say he's about the size of the last one I covered. That doesn't work. Okay. You hooked him perfectly. Look at that. I'm glad you set the hook a second time.
Yeah.
Because you saw the way he jumped. Gorgeous bronze
Nice
colors.
fish.
Beautiful fish. Okay, we're going to get him back in the net and back in the water. Good job, by the way. I loved it when he leaped out of the water.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
I know, that wasn't you, right? Pulling him, he jumped, right?
No, of course he jumped.
Of course not. Look at, they've got so much energy, even though we had him out of the water for a second. Going to reverse that net. And there he goes. Perfect.
There. Did you notice we came up to about 11 feet there?
I did.
And this is the advantage of having a hummingbird being able to connect directly to our trolling motor. This trolling motor has universal sonar built into it.
You know what? While you're talking about it, I'm just going to show the viewers, because a lot of people don't realize that we know exactly what the depth is underneath us.
Because in most situations,
there it is right
most
there.
boats have the transducer mounted at the back of the boat, where the way we're doing fishing here, we're jigging, we want to know exactly what's below us. So that transducer is shooting straight underneath us.
Yeah. And both of us, maybe you haven't noticed, but both of us watch our lines, but we've also got one eye on our line, one eye on the sonar, because as soon as it comes up, when you get to these little pinnacles, right now we're in about 13 feet, it'll drop down to 20, come back up. Usually when it comes up, that's when you get those fish on. Now, Richard, I know that you get a little bit of time to go fishing, and you're really familiar with the marketplace as far as electronics. Are the old-time fishermen catching on that electronics really help, like sonars? You see a lot of guys that are in the tin boats, you know, and you see them struggling a little bit, you know, with boat control, and they don't have a sonar. They're still using landmarks. Are you finding that some of their attitudes are changing?
Yeah, they're definitely changing now. I think.
Good one.
There we go.
Because, you know, in the old days, we didn't really have good electronics.
There was hardly anything.
Because I think back when we started sport fishing, it was like in 1985, 86.
Yeah.
And there were electronics out there, but they weren't refined anywhere like they are today. Whether it's the electrics, you know, for power. I mean, these Minn Kotas with the dimmer switch, you know, dial, you can go as slow as you want.
Yep.
You control with them, you can go fast. And they make them in such strong weights. Do many people get the ones where they need the 3 batteries? You know,
Not
for
a
this
whole lot.
36
You need
volt?
a pretty big boat for that. But anything up to probably 21 feet and down, the 80 pound, 70, 80 pound thrust, that's really what you need, yeah.
You know, that fish would be perfect eating size. We're not going to be talking about trophies, okay? If you were to eat one out of the Great Lakes, it should be under 2 pounds. You still get some nice fillets, and they're probably some of the healthier fish to eat. Okay, you know what? We don't even need the net
You don't
for
need
the
the net
release.
for this?
No, I'm just going to drop him back. There he goes.
Fisher girl! Catch the passion!
So one of the most popular lures to use when fishing is a jig and plastic grub. So this is the jig, and this is the plastic grub. This is a curly-tailed grub. It's got the little curly tail, looks like a little critter. So to put the jig in the plastic grub, we're going to stick the point in the center of the grub and push it all the way down, about a half, 3/4 of the way down, and then turn it out and push it all the way to the head of the jig so that the point is matching the curly tail.
That's exactly how it's supposed to be rigged. Now, the reason why Monica put the curly tail up is because a jig is designed to fall to the bottom. And when it hits the bottom, a lot of times when you lift it up when you're jigging, the curly tail will hit the bottom and it won't work properly. So if the curly tail is facing up, even if you're actually dragging the jig along the bottom, that curly tail will still work. So what's really important to do when you're fishing a jig and grub like this is when you cast it out, make sure that it goes to the bottom, because that's what it's designed to do. And then slowly reel it in or jig it in and you'll catch some fish.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Naden Boats, Canada's finest aluminum boats.
When it comes to fishing tube jigs on the bottom, it's very important that you use the right shape and size jig head. What I'm holding up on the right-hand side are 2 traditional ones. You can see that this one, the eye is coming out perpendicular in the middle of the jig head. On the top one, the eye is more at the front of the jig head and it's coming out at 60 degrees. So this one is good to use in open water where you don't have a lot of snags, but this one is very good to use if you're fishing over rocks or in the current, because when you pull on it, the jig head will actually come up a lot easier, where the bottom one won't. The whole jig head will lift up. So when you're choosing the proper jig head for a tube jig, it's very important that you consider the size and also the angle. The size, because the best way to fish a tube jig is on the bottom. That's where the smallmouth bass are, looking for things like crayfish, things like gobies that are very common now in our Great Lakes. If you do that, it won't take long before you get a fish on. Richard, you see what I mean about setting the hook? Look it.
Oh, that's how you do
They
it.
come to the surface and then they start flying out of the
Wow.
water. Look how dark he is. Not a big fish again, but you know what?
Look at him take
It's
it.
a
He wants to go
smallmouth.
straight down.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. Kind of turn him a little bit. He's going around the boat. He's in the net.
There we
Good.
go.
Hook nicely on the side. He's going back. Now you're ready to go, right? We're still here. You know, this is kind of nice. If I lose a little bit of boat control because I'm not on the electric, Richard's got the remote. There he goes.
Just keeping us in control
This
here.
is teamwork. Okay, got my tube back in place. Quick, get your line in the water. They're biting like crazy.
Can't catch fish with a line out of the water.
This is true. Now, I've been told you fish like 3 times a week. That's not the case.
No, it's
Guess what? Oh, I got off. I had one on. Okay, let me get the net. Keep him in the water. We don't want him jumping off. You know what? Good thing we got the electronics. I can see that hook just nice in the roof of the mouth.
There we go.
Man, you are good. Just watch that hook. I think it helps. We're using the braided line, you know, when you set the hook. So it really helps, even though
really
we've got...
sets them nice. Look at that.
Look at, and you can see those rattles that are there. Nice fish. He's not a monster, but you know what? The way
Nice
they come
size-
out of the
nice
water,
size fish.
a lot greener than the other one.
Yeah, the other one's darker.
black. Yeah, gorgeous. Okay, I'm gonna get
Back
him
she
in.
goes.
Okay, let's see how quickly it takes to revive. How about a second? Man, he came out of the water fast. There you go.
There he goes.
Perfect.
Right. Hey, Tal, I want to show you the 800 series Hummingbird fish finder.
Oh, it's
Color
awesome.
screen
I know.
on such,
Sure.
It's absolutely
Yep.
awesome. So this is the screen that we're using now, and what you can see is it's a split screen. So you have your chart on the right-hand side, showing you all your track lines, your contour lines of the lake, and on the left-hand side, you've got your 2D sonar screen. And if you hit your view button, you get an image of your down imaging view. And down imaging is a crystal clear picture of what is down below. You can just see the detail down on the bottom. My favorite view is a split screen where you have down imaging on the right-hand side, giving you that crystal clear image on the bottom, and your 2D sonar. And then to go reverse, you just hit your exit button and you can go back to the screens, your
It's
two
amazing.
favorite
What I
screens.
like is how sharp it is.
It's crystal clear.
You know, having the chart on the right, we see where we've been.
Yeah.
We can see the structure. Everything is confirmed on the left. Plus, you can see the fish.
Yep.
What a great tool.
And every time you catch a fish, you just hit your mark, you get a waypoint, and you know where you're catching fish.
Natural shorelines, like the one behind me where I'm standing, are very important for fish and wildlife. The only problem is they're very sensitive to erosion, and especially to erosion from boat wakes. In most places, you're only supposed to go 10 kilometers an hour when you're within 30 meters of any shoreline. So if you're boating and you see no wake signs, slow down your boat. Or if you're going through narrow channels, or if you're going in a river like this that's not very wide, always slow down. That way you'll ensure you don't damage the shoreline and there'll be lots of fish and wildlife. You know, one of the newest plastic grubs on the market just came out from Trigger-X, and it's called a hoodad or hodad, and I'm holding it right here in my right hand. You can see it's a combination of like a tube, but it also has a little bit of a twister action tail. If I bend these little legs, they're actually facing forward. So when it's coming through the water, these two legs produce a lot of action, almost like a crayfish. And then there's like two paddles on either side that kick the water. It's a very interesting plastic grub. Now, it's hollow only to about halfway up. And a lot of people will rig these almost like Texas rig style, or they'll use a weighted worm hook inside. But what I've done here is actually rigged it up. I've taken a needle and I've put the line through the needle, and then I've slid the needle inside the hoodad so that it comes all the way out. When the line is all the way out, I've tied my jig head onto it, and then I slide the jig head back in, just like that. Now you can tell how far in it's hollow because see there's a depression here, that's the solid head. And then here's the little belly that's created by the tube jig hook. So you can see how tantalizing that looks, and it'll probably deflect off of rocks because the front of it is soft. And when a fish grabs it, all he feels is the plastic, and of course he gets the hook in his mouth. Great to be fished out in the open, whether you're fishing rock piles or dragging bottom like we are here on the Niagara River, or if you're casting to areas that aren't too weedy. Good fish. You know what, Richard? He's bigger. It's funny because we were just talking about where the sun went, and I had that pickup. This guy looks dark.
The dark
And
one?
I think he's going to be a little bit bigger.
We'll see.
So I'm going to keep the pressure on. You know, both Richard and I are using these new nanotechnology rods. They're very lightweight, very sensitive, which is kind of nice to fish on the bottom. They're called the Concept TI, and you can see I've got the drag set pretty tight, so you can't run line off. And we're also using a braided line. It's that Suffix 832 braid. And the braid is so important because it's very low stretch, so you can really feel the difference between the bottom and a fish. That's a nice fish. Look how clear that water is. Now, you know what? He's not done yet. I don't know if he's going to jump. Yeah, this guy's got a little bit of shoulders. I love how beautiful they are in that clear water. It's actually putting a little bit of stress on my wrist. This is good. What are you going to do?
He still wants to go.
Fish.
It's a nice fish.
Yeah. Okay, see if I can guide him to the net for you. And
There we go.
okay, he's over 17 inches. He's chunky.
That's a nice fish.
It is. Now that's a nice chunky smallmouth.
Beautiful fish.
You know what? I'm going to take a quick measurement. Yep. I'm going to see here. I'm guessing he's about 19. Hopefully he won't fly out of my hands. You know what? He's 19 inches. Okay, I'm going to let you do the honors here. We're going to get him back in the net.
Yep.
And if you hold him over the side, just let him revive for a second. He should be fine. By the way, I told you you're very good with the net. We haven't missed a fish.
Exactly.
Look at those bars. That's perfect.
Look at that.
Pull the net away and he should actually just swim down. There he goes, swimming just off. Now, Richard, I got to tell you a funny thing. Almost every time I'm out fishing, people ask me, they come over and say, whether the boat's on the trailer or on the thing, what is that at the back? And I tell them, well, it's a rocket launcher, you know, and they kind of look at me funny. Why don't you explain to the viewers what that is? Because it's a really neat tool.
Well, you're close. It's almost like a rocket launcher. It's the Minn Kota Talon. It's a shallow water electronic anchor. So what it actually does is you hit a button and it'll shoot a spike straight down 8 feet up to 8 feet of water. It comes in two versions, a 6 foot and an 8 foot. Or if you're not at the back of the boat and to hit the button, you have a remote controller. You can work from anywhere in the boat.
Well, it wouldn't work here because we're out in about 12 to 20 feet of water.
Yeah.
But especially if you're fishing shorelines, and a lot of guys like to bass fish or even walleye fish, in shallower water, instead of dropping and pulling an anchor all day or running the electric all the time if you don't need to, you just hit a button. The one thing Richard didn't mention, you can do it manually or you have a remote, much like the remote that's for the Terova that controls it from any position in the boat. I find that if we have to go to shore with Mulligan, if she has to go do some business,
Do her business?
I put the front of the nose on shore instead of trying to dig the motor down. I just
Drop it down.
drop it and it keeps it there. And this morning we were launching the boat and I'm used to having someone hold it and I come back and he's not holding the boat. And I forgot. He said, oh, I got the Talon. So that goes right down at the boat launch and it holds it right there, away from the docks. It doesn't get hit. So I think it's a really smart idea.
Yeah, it's a great thing.
Yeah, maybe next year they'll come out with a rocket launcher model.
Canadian Sport Fishing is brought to you by Suffix, the world's most hardcore fishing line. Yamaha Outboards, reliability starts here. Sail, the outdoors superstore. Fisher Girl, catch the passion.
Now what I've got here is a bait caster. You can use a bait caster spinning outfit when it comes to fishing the tubes on the bottom. But you can see this one's got a braided line in it, and it's green color, which is fine on bright days. The braided lines now come in a ghost color. This is the Suffix 832, and also in a yellow color, which is great when you have overcast or low light conditions because you can see them a lot better. No matter which one you use though, it's really important to use a leader. So this is the actual Suffix fluorocarbon leader. We've been using 12-pound test today. Now a lot of people think that fluorocarbon line is just like leader, and it's not. If fluorocarbon line is designed for casting, you can't really use it as a leader material. It's not stiff enough or abrasion resistant enough. So it's very important that you actually get leader material.